Zach is back. It's the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
When it comes in terms of a political discussion, usually people are going to disagree. We all know that. And there's some times when I see some political views and I don't agree with them. The world would be boring if everyone just agreed with everything. And there's some things I disagree about with Curt Schilling, but at the end of the day, I've said this before, I've told Curt this before, there is no doubt about it in my mind that he's a Hall of Famer. And last week we had Randy Miller on the show, and Randy Miller wrote an article saying, oh, Curt shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame because he was a bad teammate. And I think that that line is just absolutely ridiculous. And we debated Randy and offered Randy to come on the show today to join Curt, and Randy politely declined, which is fine. Randy has every right to do that. But now the three-time World Series champion, Curt Schilling, is kind enough to join us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Hey, Curt, how are you? Nice to talk to you.
What's up, guys?
Well, we appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me on.
And I appreciate you coming on. Real quickly before we get into the Randy Miller article and we have you respond to it and we talk all about the Hall of Fame stuff, with I'm sure you're sick and tired about talking already, I want to just talk a little politics real quickly because we see some fake news out there right now. You saw Donald Trump address that today. When you first read about this whole Golden Shower Tinkle Party article by BuzzFeed, what was your reaction, Curt?
Hold on. I'm in the middle of Cujo and all of his companions at the house. You know what? Can you repeat that question? I'm going to go. Hold on. I'm moving locations.
Sure, no problem.
I apologize.
Just my question was, and it's fine, I have a dog as well, and hopefully your dog isn't taking a tinkle right now. When you first read that BuzzFeed article of the Golden Shower, what was your reaction?
Somebody got trolled. And it turns out that BuzzFeed got trolled, and then BuzzFeed trolled the left. What an embarrassing day another embarrassing day for. I no longer call them the mainstream media, but the establishment media. It feels like they're all going the way of Brian Williams. Because I got to ask you, if you're in the business of news and you lie and deceive people once, don't you lose credibility? And if you lie and deceive people on a pretty continual basis, I got to believe you're out of the business as any meaningful way. Did you see the press conference today?
Oh, yeah, I didn't see all of it, but I saw the interaction with the CNN reporter by Trump.
That was the greatest 30 seconds of my life. Because you know what? He was saying, I think, speaking for all of us. We're tired of the BS. I don't care what side of the ledger you're on, but if the foundation of your arguments and the basis of your character assassination are lies or are news articles that you don't validate, then you have no place in the news cycle. And CNN has, I think, proven, and obviously I'm a conservative, and I think it's funny, Clinton News Network, but at the same time, and everybody has a slant. They slant as left, hard left, as Fox can do right, and all the other things. But they purposely lied. They admitted that they wanted to get Hillary Clinton elected. And that's not, the media was, that fourth estate, right? I mean, they were always supposed to be the group of people that kept power in check. And now, as we learned through the WikiLeaks, the media was in the bag for the Democrats, not just the Democrats, but Hillary Clinton, when it became obvious that they had rigged the primary. And I'm not speculating. This is stuff you can read in the DNC emails. Staggering stuff. But I like the fact, you can say what you want about Breitbart, but I dare anybody to go on that website right now and find a lie. We are conservative, and we do lean right, but we don't make news up. And all of the stuff it's amazing to me how far people are going to go to slam and slander and to take away credibility and lie doing it.
Curt, there's some times where I think that Trump should just tone it down a bit on social media. but let me just ask this, though, real quickly. Like, what would have been the harm today in answering that reporter's question and just handling it a bit more professionally as the President of the United States?
Right there with you, okay? But this is what you get when you ask a career businessman to sit in the Oval Office. Part of the reason he got elected is because he's not part of the establishment. Part of the reason he got elected is because he doesn't kiss the media's ass.
You're right.
And that's not a bad thing. And I would argue and you know this, and I don't know that enough people know this, the President of the United States, nobody, in fact, is by law bound to talk to media. He doesn't have to talk to anybody. He doesn't have to talk to any of the news stations. Do you remember a couple weeks ago when he had the big meeting at Trump Tower with all the media executives?
Yes.
And he came out after that meeting, after he ripped them all a new one, and he did a 5-minute YouTube video. In 5 minutes, he showed them, I don't need you. And he doesn't. If you think about Twitter, its reach, and you think about YouTube and its reach, and Facebook and all the things that go with that, do you think, I would argue probably there has never been a more tech-savvy administration than this one's going to be. He doesn't need those, the norm. The rules have changed. And I think the media is afraid. And I think, and here's the thing: if they weren't lying,
I don't think the CNN reporter today was afraid.
They wouldn't be afraid of anything, but they're afraid of losing their grip. And all you have to do is look at ESPN. ESPN was the end-all be-all of sports a year ago, right? Now, what, another million viewers down? Because they decided, before firing me, but certainly since firing me, they are going to go all in on the liberals, on the left. And they've done so with people that are racist and people that are stupid. And that's what happens.
I still think it's very important that he has these news conferences because people want to hear the answers.
Totally agree with you. And I'm with you. I think, what I wanted to see today, I wanted to see a man edging his way towards acting presidential. And I think, listen, since the beginning, he's changed tremendously. But I still think he has a ways to go. I think if we're looking for someone to hold a press conference and appear to be like Reagan, we're not going to get that.
Curt Schilling with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. You say he changes. What have you seen change so far about him?
Well, let's be clear. I've known Mr. Trump for about 12 years now.
Sure.
And he's a very different man than I knew 12 years ago. But I think the fundamental change was, if you think about his life, I mean, this is the epitome of a guy born into wealth, right? He was handed wealth when he was young. He turned that into enormous wealth, which is awesome. But can you think of a time in his life when he was ever out milling around in a black neighborhood or a black church or poverty-stricken communities or Detroit being desolate as it is? I think in the primary and in the general, I think he got exposed to a country that he had never been exposed to, and I think it was a good thing. I think he realized that this was a chance to go and make a difference and to truly have an impact and to lead. Listen, guys like that, I think it's a good thing, but legacy is a big deal. And I think he sees he has an opportunity. I think that changed him. But at the same time, I love the thought that I don't have to wait more than 2 or 3 hours for a tweet to know what's on my president's mind.
Curt Schilling with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Curt, I got to get to this Randy Miller article. And like I was saying before we brought you on, I had Randy on last week, and I didn't agree with the article. I've told you before, and I'll tell you again, you're a Hall of Fame pitcher when I look at it, and you should be in the Hall of Fame. And we had Randy on, and he explained his case. And I asked him, well, give me some examples of how Curt was a bad teammate. And he referenced Mitch Williams, Garrett Stevenson, and Wayne Gomes. How do you respond to that claim?
Well, first of all, I hate responding because it does legitimize Randy. And Randy and I have never been friends. We never got along. I never respected him. I never thought he did his job with any integrity. But that's neither here nor there. That's just my personal opinion. However, he referenced a couple people. First off, in 22 years, probably the worst human being I ever played with was Mitch. We didn't get along. That's fine. That happens. I don't care. And Garrett Stevenson, I went through this with him on the radio here. I was the ace of the staff for a long time in Philadelphia. I had a job to do, and that job was to try and get the most out of the younger pitchers on that team. So when pitchers came to the big leagues, all the young guys for the most part, I would take them out shopping, buy them suits. We'd have dinner, lunch, whatever, and sit and talk. And part of that process was introducing them to what was happening, what was going to happen. And I did that for a lot of the guys. When I didn't get reciprocation from an effort perspective, I had a problem. And I think you figured out at this point, when I have a problem with somebody, I don't generally beat around the bush.
Which has
so I called him out day after day to try and get him, because listen, at some point you realize in the big leagues, I'm not getting paid to pitch. I'm getting paid to win. And it's a very different mentality. And Garrett Stevenson was, in my mind, a horrific underachiever. I think he had a chance to be something special. He didn't take advantage of that. And as someone who was lectured early in my career by Roger Clemens, I pushed and pushed. And at some point, I have to take care of my own self and my own career. At some point, you walk away. And, so Garrett didn't get along with me, which, again, that's fine. I'm sure you'd find some other young pitchers that felt the same. But you won't find any pitchers that ever became really good that would say that about me. Because I just asked for guys to give the same thing they expected me to give.
It's clear you and Randy Miller don't get along. Randy said to me when he was on this show, he would love to have a conversation with you, and that's why I offered him to come on today. And I understand why you wouldn't want to do it in a public setting like this.
Right.
If you and Randy were to talk, what do you think that conversation would be like?
Listen, I'm 50 years old. I don't have a lot of time for crap. If I don't listen. Let's be very clear about something. I don't hate Randy Miller. First of all, I hate very few people. It takes way too much effort to hate.
Are you guys actually
related,
Kurt?
I dislike him. I don't think he's good at his job. But that's all just my opinion. Nothing more. I wouldn't have any problem talking about anybody or talking with anybody for the most part. I don't know what I would say. I won't give it too much thought. Again, because I have a life, and when I disagree with people, I disagree with a lot of people. But people that say things about me that aren't true, people that say things about me lying when they do it, are people without integrity. And I always say, generally the people that call me a racist, A, don't know me, and B, are probably people I want to be pissed off anyway.
Are you guys actually related? You and Randy?
I have no idea. I'm actually been doing quite a bit of Ancestry over the last couple of years on Ancestry.com, and I haven't seen that on my family tree yet. That would be a horrific computer glitch for it to be actually true. But no, I'm kidding.
It would be an awkward Thanksgiving. It would be a really awkward Thanksgiving, Kurt.
No, hey, listen, it would be awkward for about 30 seconds, and then it'd probably be like Jim Everett and Jim Rome, I would imagine.
Kurt, just because we were talking about family a little bit, I know that when that piece is written, although you find it probably wrong that someone said that you're a bad teammate, right. So I know that it's not going to affect you, but I'm sure when your kids read it, they're probably saying, well, what the heck is this crap? How do you talk about this with your kids?
Well, and that's a great question, and I got to tell you, and I've said this every time I've been asked and talked about it, what an amazing number of teaching moments I've had and been given over this stuff. My kids know who I am. My kids see me every day. They know that there is not a bone in my body that's racist. They know that I don't I don't have a problem with the LGBT community. I'm as inclusive as anybody you'll ever meet. It comes down to being a good or a bad person. So when they hear things like that, first of all, most of them they're kind of old enough to think for themselves, but there's a discussion to be had. How can someone say these things about you? And I try to explain. My dad told me this a long time ago. He said, when you walk outside this door at 18 years of age, you no longer need to expect fairness. The world's not going to treat you fair. And so that's why I don't get too worked up about stuff like this. And you can see a couple years back when I was first on the ballot, people were asking me about it, and I tried to tell people I don't think about this at all until it comes up and people ask me. And Randy provides you guys on your side with hopefully an understanding of the reason why I don't get worked about it.
Oh, I think it's stupid. For example,
right.
if
my
anyone...
point is, it's an arbitrary process done by human beings who are as deeply flawed as the candidates they want to invoke the character clause on. Bill Conlin was a despicable human being.
No question.
And these were his friends. They didn't disavow this guy. So, that doesn't make them pedophiles. I'm just saying, I don't worry about people who want to question my character that don't know me.
Here's the thing, though, and maybe I interpreted it wrong, but when you talk about TMZ and you say some of these journalists are the worst human beings ever, yes, we know Bill Conlin is one of those people, but you're a member of the media now, whether you want to admit that or not, and you have a look and you see that, and you worked with a lot of good journalists. So it's like grouping those people. Why did you go about those comments?
I can't help. Here's the thing: I can't interpret, and I can't caveat everything I say. Jason Stark, Tim Kirkchin, Rob Bradford. I could name 1,000 of them if I sat down and thought hard enough. They're amazingly good people that I love to death. Listen, Tony Maserati in Boston says nasty things about me all the time. I love Tony to death, even though I'd like to punch him in the throat. The thing about Tony is he's a passionate guy who loves the sport. Okay? The challenge with sports writers is that I met millions of people that could do their jobs, and they look at us as. And think about this: there's a bitterness to them, and I to some degree understand. You've got guys with college educations who sit in the clubhouse and they're talking to a Latin kid from the Dominican who can't speak a lick of English, and he's making $22 million a year, and he's got a 7th grade education. And so there's going to be a dynamic there that sometimes is good and sometimes is bad. And I'm not talking about across the board. Of course I'm not. But these days you can't say anything. Listen, I compared Islamic extremists to Nazis, and I was branded a racist by the company I worked for, of all people. I mean, you can't fight that. So I guess what I tell people, and I tell my boys this, and I've always talked about this, there's that 30-minute period at night when you go to bed, and you're laying in bed, and you can look back on your day. You can't lie to yourself in that 30 minutes. You can say all you want about how hard you worked and what you did, but you know the truth. I sleep well. That 30 minutes for me every night, I make mistakes. I say dumb things. That's fine. I'm going to do that. I don't do it intentionally. I don't do it maliciously. But I know who I am, and what I'm being called and the people that have identified me as such couldn't be farther from the truth. So I sleep okay.
And then, Curt, you quote tweeted that thing, and I know you said it was sarcasm with the rope tree journalist.
Yes.
It's like you've been through everything on social media. It costs you a job. And I know that you have your personal pride in this, but, like, why even get involved in a tweet like that? Just wondering.
Well, first of all, it was more of a political than anything, from the standpoint of the media that we know died during this election. We're going to see a gigantic, and we're already starting to see it, a gigantic transformation in what I don't call it the mainstream media. I call it the establishment media for more than anything. But the media that we know, and as we know it, I think killed itself in this election. I think they went all in on Clinton. And I think, like the Clinton campaign, they didn't think that they could lose. All you have to do is flip around. Look at the YouTube clips of the election night. I mean, it looks like, Night of the Living Zombies.
Oh, it was shocking. The election night was shocking.
And here's the thing. I missed the Electoral College vote by 16 votes. I knew this was going to happen. I said it 2 months ago before the election. And I wasn't shocked. I thought it was going to. I thought a couple states would flip differently, but to anybody paying attention, they wanted it so badly for a year and a half that they just closed their eyes. I mean, it's when we talk about one of the things. All you have to do, look at the rallies. There were 20, 30,000 people at Trump rallies and 20 to 30 at Clinton rallies. Those are the activists. Those are the people that get out and vote. And it was a landslide. And, the whole I guess when you look at the electoral map and you see Western California and the 4 or 5 boroughs in New York, you understand why the Electoral College was created, because we didn't want Western California and 4 boroughs in New York to pick our president every time.
Curt, before we let you run, just getting back to your Hall of Fame status, and you take a look at the claims that Randy made, where he basically just says you weren't a good teammate, and he was using a play on your words from the TMZ thing, calling you a scumbag. The one thing, and I've met you a few times, we've had you on the show a few times, and, to me, you've been very nice, and maybe it was some tough love with Garrett Stevenson, which you talked about, and he could just possibly interpret it the wrong way. The thing I would refute, though, with these claims is, how does a Roberto Clemente Award winner have a bad character rap in this? Well, because that should be everyone that says, oh, yeah, it's because his tweets and, he's a bad character person. They should be looking at what you did during your playing days and seeing, hey, this guy won a Roberto Clemente Award, which I know means a lot to you.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was the one award I wanted to walk away from the game with. And, I don't like to talk about this stuff in the context of this conversation, because none of those things did I win to talk about. None of those things did I do things I wouldn't have otherwise done to win. I'm very proud of those things. I think those are an insight, much more insightful into my character than anything that could be printed or written. And like I said, the people that know me, the people I've been affiliated with and associated with for my entire career, know what kind of person I am. The people at ALS National know what I am. The people, my wife, Shade Foundation, those people know what I am, and my kids know. So, I've never questioned my character. Doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes and said and done dumb things, and I'll do them again. But the stuff that's out there couldn't be farther from the truth. And if I don't make the Hall of Fame, and I said this, I can't rely on a plaque to validate who I am. If I don't make the Hall of Fame, I still have the World Championships. I still have the rings and the trophies. I'm good.
You do, Curt, but here's the thing. It's like in 20 years, let's say when I take my kid or, this kid that I don't have yet, take him to the Hall of Fame and try to go through the history of baseball, and we're in that room looking at the plaques, and the way this is going, it looks like you'll never get into the Hall of Fame. And I don't have the ability to look at that plaque and say, hey, this is Curt Schilling, and Curt Schilling was one of the best postseason pitchers I've ever seen. So, go ahead.
I'll come back with this. Let me just ask you this. If your kid says, "Wow, Dad, who was the greatest? Who was one of the greatest October pitchers you ever saw?"
Yeah, but then here's the thing that doesn't make sense about this whole process. Of course, I say, "Hey, it was Curt Schilling, the bloody sock game, all that stuff, what he did with the Red Sox and the Diamondbacks, and then also what he did here in Philadelphia." And then my kid's gonna ask me, "Well, why the heck isn't he in the Hall of Fame?" And then you get back to why the voters right now for the Hall of Fame are just screwing this up.
But I would argue
it's an inconvenience.
That's better than the alternative, because these things are conversations that have to happen. You have to, our kids need to understand. Just because you think I deserve to get something, or I think I might deserve to get something, doesn't mean you're going to get it.
True.
But so, and again, that makes me okay. I'm okay.
And
I don't want to diminish with the accomplishment, because being in the Hall of Fame,
it's a tremendous
an amazing
honor.
achievement. But I would argue, and I got to get going here. I would argue that if the character clause was so instrumental to the Hall of Fame, Dale Murphy would have been a first ballot Hall of Famer forever, and no one would have not voted for him. Jim Thome would be on with 100% of the votes. So the character clause is something that is ambiguous, and it's sporadically used by the people that vote, and that's just the way it goes.
Hey, Curt, even though sometimes we may disagree about some political stuff and whatever's on the internet, at the end of the day, you're a Hall of Famer to me, and I hope there is that one day that you get to enjoy it with your family in Cooperstown. Appreciate the time, my friend.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks so much. There's Curt Schilling joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.